All right, YouTube. Thank you guys all for coming in. This is Citizens Voice Podcast, Season 2, Episode 1, with an awesome guest, Mr. Space Tomato. You know him, you love him. I know him, I love him. I watch his content all the time. I hope you guys are just as excited for this episode as I was. And Mr. Tomato, tell us a little about yourself and kind of what got you into Star Citizen and specifically your content. Because, guys, if you didn't know, Mr. Tomato does a lot of awesome content on both YouTube, Twitch, podcasts, videos, gameplay, talking videos, all sorts of great stuff. So check him out there. And links will be in the description. But yeah, tell us a little about yourself, what you do, and kind of how you got into the game. And we'll start there.
It's sometimes too much Star Citizen, to be quite honest. Thank you for having me on the show, Galladrum. Always a pleasure to come in and talk about the life of being a citizen as it continues to move on year by year, and we make some progress in different places. I'm I love Star Citizen. I love space games. I love games with consequence and choice. Um, I like doing things in games and seeing actual consequences, changes come from that. I was like a really big fan. I think this is a little topical. I was a big fan of Fable when
Yep.
you had Peter Molyneux up on stage telling us about how he'd plant an acorn and get a tree, or how you'd change the town and then come back to it as an adult and it'd be falling apart. All these things like that set me off as a gamer. And even before that, I was playing games like Deus Ex and Mass Effect and um, Oblivion, just like RPGs that kind of were starting to push the barrier in terms of letting you make choices, change stories, lose characters, immersive sim style things. So I wasn't even drawn to Star Citizen as an MMO. I was drawn to it as like I think Squadron 42 is more typically in my wheelhouse than Star Citizen is,
Oh,
but we
interesting.
can't play
Okay.
Squadron.
Yeah.
So I've been playing Star Citizen this whole time, and I've grown to love it. Um, but I came to it not because it was a multiplayer game, but because they focused on this idea of living in space, living this civilian life in space, picking ships, picking armor, picking items, and then dealing with the consequences or the repercussions of using those specific items or picking that specific ship or working on a planet or flying to a space station, all that kind of stuff. You don't have enough oxygen, you don't have enough heat, your ship's too heavy for this planet's gravity. Those are the things that interested me, and they were the things I was always thinking about when I was playing games like Halo as a kid. I was
Yeah.
like, this is cool. I love being Master Chief, but what are the people doing down here on Earth, like day in, day out? How does this military base get its supplies in the middle of a war zone? And why don't we get to learn about that? And I feel like Star Citizen was telling something about that in a story for a game that I was going to play basically the same way I play Halo, which is Squadron. So it's a perfect package. And I don't think I'm answering any specific question. I
No,
just started
it's good.
ranting
It's
about
background.
why, yeah, why Star Citizen, and it always centralizes around that point. You get to see things you don't normally get to see.
Yeah,
Well,
and
you're supposed to.
I think that's a big draw for a lot of people. I think I can make that assumption that a lot of people that is a draw. I know it was a big draw for me. This a little context for you. This is my first like the closest thing I've probably ever done to Star Citizen previous to Star Citizen was like GTA, maybe Red Dead.
Wow.
Other than that, like I'm like a FPS like gamer, so like the mil sim type game, like the Arma. I guess Arma you can maybe say has some shared similarities here, but in general, this is like my very first um, RPG. Definitely my first MMO.
Okay.
So that's what drew me to it. Was like I love Star Wars. I love space. I love the idea of it. But I'm also a huge multiplayer guy. Like I will not play games if it's single player. Squadron 42 will be a very rare exception to that.
Okay.
Um, but I generally speaking, like being in the world is what kind of has made gaming for me so cool, and being in a world with real people makes it that much cooler. Um,
So was
especially
Arma your main game before?
no, I would say I bounce around a lot, especially in the shooter games. Like Tarkov, I think is probably my biggest. I've
Okay.
got a couple thousand hours in Tarkov. Arma, I think I'm a couple hundred, something like that. Maybe just shy of 1,000. Um, games like Hell Let Loose, Squad. Um, Generally, the more hardcore stuff, I typically tend to stay away from like the Call of Duties, um, and kind of the more arcadey, fast twitch shooters. I like the more kind of grounded, based in reality, a little bit more tactics, a little bit more strategy, also larger scale. Scale is a huge thing for me. I love scale,
Okay.
which I'm sure we'll touch on a lot in this episode. But um, yeah, a lot of shooting games for me.
Cool. Yeah,
Um,
I like shooters, but I definitely like when there's more stuff besides the shooting.
yeah, which I think is what drew me to Star Citizen is like it's cool to be in a world where I can be shooting and you can't be. Like you could be doing
Hmm.
something totally different. And I think that like just kind of blew my mind with that is so cool that
Yeah.
we can be in the same universe doing the same thing or like being in the same game but totally separate activities. That
Yeah.
blew my mind. Super cool.
One of my favorite finishes to the Daymar Rally, not this year, I think it was a year or two ago. I was filming it, and the people I was filming after they had finished, I did a little interview with them, just talking to them about how the race went. They got into their ship, and one of them was like, "Hey, where do you need to go?" He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do some mining over here. Can you just drop me off?" And it's like you can just get out of this 500-kilometer race, don't never see a loading screen or a menu, and hop off and go do some mining because you got some money to make.
Yeah.
That's it's novel.
Yeah, it really is. Um, I was teaching my dad to play Star Citizen for the very first time this past weekend. Um, and I've told him about the game a lot, but I've never really showed it to him. I've showed him like the trailers before, and that's kind of the extent of it.
Mhm.
And it was funny hearing him talk about it because he was looking at it from like the engineer side. He's an engineer in real life, and he was like, really is impressive that you can load in and never have a loading screen. And so like the very first thing we did was a bunker mission, and he comes out of the bunker and just looks out and was like, "There's so much opportunity here, just from what I can see with my own two eyes on my screen right now." And I'm like, "You are looking at a fraction, a teeny little fraction of the playable space in this game where you could literally do whatever cargo, mining, salvage, combat,
Mhm.
piracy, whatever it might be. Like, and that I could see the wheels in his brain start to turn with the possibilities of that. It was
Which
cool to see.
which is interesting because it's two different reactions to that. The I think the reaction that you're describing comes from like more your circles.
Yeah,
Arma, somebody who might play something like Rust,
yeah,
things with sandboxes where you're like making your own fun. You know how to get people together and you see an open space and you say, this is unlimited potential to do things.
yeah,
Then you have the other reaction, which is more in line with, I think, your mainstream casual gamer, or at least where they are right now, who would look out at that empty space and the first thing they're thinking is, okay, well, what's it filled with? What
yeah,
what is there to actually do? You have all this space. It's the first thing you say when a new big open world game comes out. Ubisoft announced a new Assassin's Creed, and they're like, "Oh, it's got this much space," and you're like, "Cool, we know this story." And I think that that is something that Star Citizen is really struggling with, but it seems like they have a plan for it. Maybe I don't
yeah.
know. Starchitect sounds insane to me. What do you think of that whole idea?
I love it in concept. I also think it sounds insane. I would be shocked if they can pull it off to the level that we've seen at like CitizenCon, for example. Like that little demo where they show it like just all the circles populating around a planet.
3,000 locations.
I was like, how is our computers gonna run that? Like, we already struggle to run just a barren planet. Now you want to fill all of those locations. A lot of them, I'm assuming, are gonna have NPCs at them. Like, my CPU is gonna fry itself, and I have a 9800X 3D. Like, it shouldn't be frying itself. Um, and so I think it's incredible. I think it's really cool if they can pull it off. But I am cautiously optimistic. I'll say.
They're gonna need optimization wizards at this company.
Yes, yes, they will. Cool. Well, uh, before I forget, I want to flow into your kind of introduction to the game and why you started um, your org, GII, kind of the intro story there. We'll touch more about like why why the org and org dynamics a little bit later in the episode. But as we kind of start to get into this, why did you start it? What was the thought process there? Was it tied to your content? Was it tied to the game? Kind of what was the starting up story there?
The excuse me. Had you asked how I was introduced to Star Citizen there, or was it the org mainly?
Um, Mostly the org. Like, so
Okay.
what made you want to start the org? Was it tied
Yeah.
to your content? Was it tied to the game?
Yeah.
What were you hoping to achieve with it? That kind of stuff.
The org was mainly started, so me and Mrs. Tomato, this is something that we've been doing together um for 6 years now, just about. She does a lot of the management, publishing, and some of the editing. I do, obviously, I'm on the camera. We were at a point where, like, I was kind of starting to get a little bit more attention on YouTube, and we, God, it was such. It's hard to kind of remember at this point. It was a whole weird thing. We were. My story starting out the content was very strange. I actually started out from her parents' dining room table,
Okay.
um, which is a whole story on its own. But at that time, I wasn't. We weren't. We were in. I was in ADI. Actually, you might know the name. I was a member of ADI for a while, and at one point decided to step away and start making content. Didn't want to, like, cause trouble in the org. So
Yeah.
we started to make our own content and stuff. But over time, people wanted to play and wanted to come in and help with, like, the filming and the testing. And it was at the point where I couldn't tell them to join this org in order to play with me, because then, like, that's not they're not joining the org for the org, and that causes
Yeah.
problems. So we split off and we made a Discord server where we could do that kind of stuff. And slowly it built from there as just kind of like a place to play. Um, but eventually, as the content continued to grow, it got to a point where we realized, oh, this is going to be a thing. We're going to be around for a while. We're going to be doing this for a long time. We could actually help the community at this point. It's not just a place to play with us, but a place to help make Star Citizen remain the kind of game it is.
Yeah.
And over the years, I don't. When did you start playing?
Uh, 20. Uh, I bought my first account in 2021. I refunded it because my PC would not run the game. And then I think I bought back into it again like just a few months later after this game prompted me to upgrade my PC. So I want to say it like 20 late 2021, 20 early 2022.
Got pulled back into the scam, huh?
I did. And now it's too
Um,
deep.
Probably even before that time, there was like a really, really togetherness feeling of the community where everybody had this collective struggle through a game that just did not work. I know the game is struggles right now and has, but back in the day, it was not good. And I think a lot of people bonded over that, got closer because of that, and it was just so far from being a game or anything really important being developed that people were just really friendly and wanted to keep the passion up. So there was this really good feeling of camaraderie that obviously is going to start disappearing as the community grew. So we wanted to create a space where it could be like an org that is not necessarily pushing you to do something specific, but more acts as a place of membership, kind of like hmm, uh, I mean, there are tons of organizations like this in real life. You
Yeah.
don't go to their meetings, you don't pay them, you don't donate, you don't work for them or anything. But when you do need something, you at least know that there are other people in those groups within
Yeah.
a couple blocks of you or within the same city of you. And as Star Citizen grows, you realize it is going to be hopefully more trustworthy because CIG gets their crime stat system together. But there's plenty of times when you're going to want something to do, and maybe you don't trust the in-game rating system, and
Yeah.
maybe you don't want to deal with people that you might not be able to depend on. We want you to be able to go into a list of people and pick a name and know that you can count on them. You know that they're not going to be freaking crazy. They're not going to stab you in the back. And if they do, you guys both have like a common authority to listen to that is not some moderator at CIG that might or might not get back to you. So that was like the main secondary goal of GII. The third goal The third goal is to become the primary, we'll say, pharmaceutical provider in the what I like to call the Magnus Circle of Systems, which is Ellis, Stanton, and Terra.
Yep.
So we got plans, but that's a
Nice.
long story.
Yeah, you make some interesting points there on like specifically the reliability part of having someone that you can rely on. Like when you know that you invite this person to a party or you send them a message, specifically kind of in game. Shout out social tools. We need that CIG, please, please. Um, uh, that trust factor I think is really important. Um, and being now, I guess a follow up question to that is at least when I last looked, your larger Discord is sitting like just shy of 10,000 members. Are there any concerns that scale starts to degrade some of that individual trust factor because you've reached a point that's so high that it's become hard to vet some of the um I guess just the sheer quantity of members that are coming in.
Yeah, definitely. I actually there are times when I'm like, let's we don't really actively recruit.
Yep.
Um Most of our recruitment comes from like streams and doing videos and stuff. And there are times when I am less likely to like say the name and push people to apply because I know I'm at the top of the org, but we have a team of people who are working through running events and managing
Yep.
members and all this stuff, and like overloading them is, well, not fair. Everybody's volunteering. Nobody needs to be constantly sitting at the computer for this stuff.
Yeah.
And uh that I go back and forth really on the idea of like, do we want to keep growing or do we want to find a number and cap it and never go beyond that? But the Discord server itself isn't even our org. There's actually you join the Discord, but you actually have to apply for the org still. So we do have an
I did
extra
notice
layer
that.
there,
Yep.
yeah, that
That's
that
cool.
does help. And yeah, we've done a couple of things throughout the years to allow there to be kind of like a central org, like a real org.
Yep.
Not a real org, but like the org that we know are all members. And then there's like the trial version of the org. So you can join and you are part of the org and you can be involved in things, but it's more of like if you want to get serious about it, you have to then check off a list and let people know, hey, I understand that I am held accountable for these things. And if I do something, then okay, that's fair. But like if you just join the org and you're in that basic role, that's okay. You
Yep.
if you're unreliable or like you may or may not dabble in some killing other players, which is like the one rule that we don't really we try to enforce, that's fine. That's the position that you were in at that point, and we're like, okay, you're fine to step out of that position if you don't want to be part of the org anymore. But
Yep.
I think there's something to be said about a sort of staggered onboarding, not so much gatekeeping, just
Yep.
you know letting people know who more reliable
Setting
members of the org are.
expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. It's a question I love to ask to anyone who runs an org because everyone handles it differently. Some people do like physical gatekeeping, where it's like you have to like physically do these steps in order to apply. I know other orgs do things like I see this oftentimes in some of the PvP focused orgs where they're like there's a literal barrier to entry and it's a cost, like an in-game cost. You have to like prove yourself as a PvP winner by doing these certain things and getting, say, like Apex Fangs and Pure Karenite and things like that are typically more PvP focused, and
Yeah.
bring those to us, and that is your entry fee. Um, and I've seen that a few times. And then there's other groups that don't really have a method at all. And then there's, I would say, the other set of groups that do like in-person interviews and which I'm personally not a fan of just from a time management standpoint. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
lot.
and there's everything in between. There's so many different, or I think at last look, there's like 40,000 orgs listed on RSI or something like that. I'm sure every one of them have some unique twist on how to handle that. So it's an
Yeah,
interesting question to ask.
I've seen like send us a picture of your ID to verify you and stuff.
Wow.
Like, yeah, people have gone. That's really how it is though. Like if you took 10,000 people from the planet and you said, "Hey, all of you make a group," you'd get some pretty weird groups
Yeah,
and some weird requirements. I think that's all too much. I think, well, it's all subjective, right? Nobody's right or
yeah,
wrong, but I like the idea of letting people, like, lowering the barrier to entry and letting people come in, um, but then quickly ratcheting up the responsibility and the requirements for that. You know, you give people the ability to participate in the org at whatever level it is they want to. I think is sometimes you just want a really hardcore group though.
yeah. And it's interesting because like you said about hardcore, sometimes people aren't looking to grow. Like they are totally content with their 10
Yeah.
to 15 as long as it stays hardcore and they keep their requirements to the max. They keep like playtime activity requirements to the max, and it's just this super tight knit,
Yeah.
and you only know those people. And then there's other groups that grow to 30,000 or 40,000, whatever, and it's kind of all over the place. You don't really know.
Yeah. There's no
Um,
wrong way.
yeah, and it's curious. I'm curious to see how CIG approaches orgs in game because currently, like our org on RSI has like 46 members because we don't push people to it at all. Because currently,
Mhm.
there's no real reason to. There's no in-game application. We don't use Spectrum for anything. So if you're not using the Spectrum chat stuff, like, what do you really even need to do on there? Except for
Yeah.
there's like some weird player tools where you can like look up people's profile to like see if they're in an org. But even then, like, what do you really need to do that for most of the time? And so I'm curious to
Well,
see
I
what they're
mean, there are some orgs that you might want to make sure people aren't coming into your org from.
exactly. And but then you deal with like redacting profiles and whatnot,
Right.
and how all
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah.
So like we don't push people in our org, and our Discord sits at like five. I think we just crossed 500, but our RSI is like 46.
Mhm.
And now, I don't say we have 500 members because we recruit a massive amount of what we call ambassadors, basically just people from other orgs so we can plan events with them.
Yeah.
So a large chunk of our 500 are members from other orgs who are only here to just see when we're doing stuff and hopefully participate.
Mhm.
Our actual members, I would say we're 100 or 200, something like that. And so I'm curious how CIG will approach the integration of orgs through Spectrum and through their website into the in-game services, probably through the social tools. I'm guessing it's going to come along that same route. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on what that could look like. And well, because I know we've kind of already seen a kind of a mock-up of what that should look like during CitizenCon, but what you're kind of hoping to benefit from that, I guess I should say.
From CIG's org tools.
Yeah, like from the stuff we saw at CitizenCon, some of
Mhm.
those. Well, I guess we didn't really see the org stuff, but the social tool revisions, and then they were talking
Yeah.
about like how you can maybe like put logos on your armors, and you have the ship custom ship paints or whatever.
Mhm.
Curious what your hope for GII is when we get to that point, and maybe some wishes that you hope to see come with that addition.
I'm actually working on a video for this, so it's quite timely. As much as I'm not a multiplayer person per se,
Yep.
I am very, very, very strongly about like getting some better social tools into the game because it's it's really bad. My there are two main things I want to see from an org perspective come to the social tools. One is uh, a tiered comm system. So I want the ability. Now this is crazy, all right, guys. Everybody, grab something, whatever's closest to you. Put your hat on, all right. It's gonna be a little copium here, but I would love to see the ability to split out voice comms on a ship by ship basis, and then to be able to specify which seats in the ship have are in which voice room. And we know that that's possible because their new voice, their social tools that they showed specifically will give you per seat information about every party member.
Yep.
So they can track the seats that you're in. And I would love to see the ability for, say, your captain of the ship to be in a voice channel, but have three different groups of voice channels below them. One is ATC, one is turret gunners, one is
Yep.
navigation. All those people can talk to the captain, but the captain can talk to each of them separately, kind of thing.
Yep.
That would be absolutely huge, not just because the voice comms in the game sucks right now, but all of these geniuses that keep telling me that we don't need social apps because we got Discord don't ever come up with a solution for the fact that Discord voice channels of more than 10 people are insane.
Yeah.
Um, so that's number one. Number two is a calendar. Yet another thing that Discord has
Oh,
refused to do
interesting.
for years. Um, we use the Discord event system for our events in game. I'm sure a lot of people do. There are different ways you can do all of this.
Yeah.
Fact of the matter is that most of the people who are in the game are looking at the game, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like trying to add your friend in game. Why do you have to go to the website to do it? Why do you have
Yeah.
to go to some third-party app to see what's going on in the game? I know it might not be common in a lot of MMOs, but I think that using Discord for events, their button says interested, not RSVP. So a lot of
Yep.
people read that and they don't assume they're actually going to the event. They just know about it, right?
Yeah.
Um, the second, when they do click on that event, how nice would it be to click on it and then basically your map takes you to the point and navigates you there instead of clicking on it, scheduling it, and then remembering you have to go in game and prepare ahead of time. Like the
Yeah.
integration of a calendar from CIG's own official events to IAE to your own org events to co-org events with somebody else you're working with, all that stuff's important.
Yeah.
And I I find it weird when people are like, "Nah, don't do that," because until you do that, everything is just a bunch of text on some random page that you may or may not see. And
Yeah.
until they can centralize that stuff into the game, uh, you basically have to be like a Star Citizen fanatic to know everything that's going on.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. CIG plus one, everything he just said, please. um, I am actively dealing with the hardships of every problem you just described. Um, that's kind of how I got started. It's what has prompted me to start doing content creation and streaming. Well, I've been streaming for a long time, but very hit or miss until a couple months ago. Um, and for me, it started with events. And so I got banned from my previous org back in like 2023, I think. I had been with them for about 2 years or so. Had a little bit of a falling out, and it ended up becoming one of the best things that ever happened to me because it prompted me to kind of change everything I did in the game. I got really close to quitting the game for good because for me, everything about Star Citizen was social, and I had just lost my social group of people to play with. And out of Star Citizen, like none of my normal gaming friends play this game. I've gotten them all to
Yep.
like download it at one point or another, but they never stay. So
Same.
I needed to develop a new group of people to play this with.
Yeah.
And when I got banned, I lost that whole group of people. And so I got really close. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm going to start my own thing. And I want the focus of it to be player generated content, which is going to typically come in the form of events. And so I just started slamming events through. And I think that's kind of maybe how you started to hear my name was on Twitter. I started promoting my arms dealing events like crazy. I just was
Yeah.
spamming it out. Um, I started paying for Twitter Premium. That was a huge plus for me. That like massively boosted the audience that was seeing these events.
Just
And
because like it shows more people the tweets, or you could do
yeah,
longer. Yeah.
both actually. I often do really long tweets. And also being able to go through and edit tweets was super helpful. And just the reach was huge. And it was literally like overnight. I started paying for Twitter Premium, and within 2 weeks, I was like breaking my own internal records for attendance and interest and growth in the Discord and whatnot. It
Nice,
started
nice.
skyrocketing.
This episode is not sponsored by Grok.
No, it's not. It's not. Um, and
Thank God.
very, very quickly, one of the pain points I discovered was how painful this system is. Just to start off, the party chat system in game, and not even just the chat, but just the party system, is the most infuriating thing I've ever had to work with in a game. nothing makes me want to crash out and literally smash my keyboard more than trying to invite more than like 10 people to a party in Star Citizen. It bugs out all the time. Like scrolling on the list doesn't seem to work half the time. Like we've already talked about, prox chat and voice chat is abysmal, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You have no idea what. There's like workarounds that sometimes work, sometimes don't. It's a total nightmare. And so
Yeah.
I shifted everything over to Discord, but like you just said, Discord is not really set up for it either. I also use the Discord event tool, and it is not fun either because I deal with the same thing. People click interested, and so then I had to put a caveat in every single event: only click interested if you're coming. I
Yep.
don't care if like you look at the
Sounds
event all
fun.
you want. Yeah, exactly. I don't care. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, but don't click interested.
That's
Um,
such a funny idea for a button. Like, oh, this is cool, and then nothing else. You just
yeah, it makes no sense. I don't know why they do it that way. So then I was like, all right, maybe polls is a better way to do this. I'll just put out a poll, but then polls have time requirements and you can't share it to other discords as well. And you can't post it on social media really that well. And it's a lot harder to track. So
Mhm.
I'm still using this horrible event system on Discord. And we're now getting events with hundreds of players. And it is such a pain to manage. So please,
Yeah.
CIG, please get something in the game. I absolutely, um, desperately need something in game to help with that. I never
It's
really thought about a
also
calendar though. That's a neat idea to integrate that into the social tools. Was that something shown at
yeah,
CitizenCon?
it is.
I
It
do
is,
not
and they
remember that.
said it
That's
would be
such a
used
cool
for
idea.
orgs. Yeah, yeah, and the thing is, the thing that annoys me most about it, you can tell I keep going back to this point. The thing that annoys me most about people telling you to use Discord is that it's not 100% adoption, and it never will be.
Yeah,
And you don't know what's going to happen to Discord. CIG might, for all we know, get bought by Tencent and become terrible. But at that point, the game's terrible.
yeah,
I was telling people to go use Gilded because, they did tiered comms, they did
yep,
calendars, they did all the stuff Discord did, but they did it correctly. But then they got bought by Roblox, and everyone had to get a Roblox account to use it. We don't know
yep,
if that's going to happen to Discord or not. They're going to go public this year. So it's annoying to tell people use this third-party program that is dealing with its own finances, that is about to go public and deal with its own shareholders in order to communicate in a game that's unfinished, just because we don't have the finished features.
yeah. So now you have to like start doing like multiple things. Like one of the things we're actively exploring right now is Mumble, I guess,
Yeah.
is one, and
TeamSpeak,
then
Mumble.
TeamSpeak, and it's like getting people to adopt TeamSpeak. Like TeamSpeak is not a very easy platform to just set up and go. Like it requires
Yeah.
a decent amount of kind of hand holding to get people on, and when you're dealing with events with more than 10 people, like you just don't want to do that anymore. It's
Yeah.
becomes the time requirement to make that happen is so high, and
Especially because then it could just crash in the middle of your event.
exactly, and then it totally disrupts everything, and it's a total nightmare. So we've literally just had to uh, be fine with the fact that we're gonna have voice chats. Like I think our peak voice chat, we had like 180 people in a voice chat one time,
Yikes, dude.
and like you literally couldn't speak. If you spoke, no one heard you, or it was the opposite, and no one would speak. And then it's like, all right, well, information is either getting lost or it's just not getting shared because there's just too many people in here,
Yeah.
and it's just a total pain. And we desperately need something to fix that.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to transition into some other game stuff because a big focus of what I wanted this episode to be about, and I know you and I have spoken about this off camera a few times, is player trading. And player trading, the twist I want to take on it for this episode is player trading in respect to orgs and how maybe your ideas on what you think player trading should look like from both an individual perspective, but also from an org perspective. Because I know CIG's kind of talked about it a little bit. They've started talking about like their player shops and how that will work when once we got base building and all that kind of stuff. And that will, I'm assuming, pretty drastically change the current setup of using like UEX or Discord DMs or whatever it is you might be using to find a trade. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on player trading in the future, and then after we're done with this, we'll touch on what it is currently right now because it's very
Mhm.
different right now.
I don't put much thought into player trading, to be honest.
Okay.
because I guess I've played Star Citizen like a tech demo for a very long time. In that I have never really focused on a main type of gameplay. I haven't locked into anything that really gets me. I'm
You're not
still
a
kind of
Wimpalo
waiting for
enjoyer?
that. For the longest time, I talked about this game. And I mean, I played it occasionally while I was talking about it, but a lot of my perspective was development facing. And that's because like the game still isn't quite as fun, for me. Like, I think crafting is going to change that in a big way because I'm a kind of
Yeah.
person who just likes to go places, find things, and collect, and then see what's valuable. Um, and from that regard, obviously, player tracing trading should be important to me, but I haven't thought about it that much other than I would want a method of trading on the spot to where you can walk up to somebody and make an agreement with them where they select something from their inventory or wallet, you select something from your inventory or wallet. It gives you an interface between you two where you can barter between those two, and then once you come to agreement, you trade them right there
Yeah.
and then. I also think that that on its own should allow you to probably do the same with items that aren't on you, and you can put in like an order or
Yeah.
a go find me kind of pin to them that like you bought this, you still have to go to the system to get it. I think that'd be a great system. Also, then there are the idea of player shops. I think that we, and this is insane to me. This is where things like Starkitect in the economy, in my mind, I have to see it to believe it because they're talking about every base that gets built with a player shop or refinery or a mining thing is going to be linked into the economy and seen as a sink or a source for resources. So
Yeah.
we're talking about every player shop now having a manifest of goods that they might want shipped to their base. So now that base is considered in the whole economic chain of things and all of that just so that this player base can run and they can have a shop where players come and pick up armors to buy.
Yeah.
Um, and then and like from there you have to imagine there's a whole market, as you were saying with UEX. That market has to take into account how many of those armors are being made at that base. Can that person choose to list those armors or keep them off the market? Is it affect the market as soon as they're made? There's like so many questions that I would
Yeah.
have. Um, but at the base level, I would love to see obviously player shops and hand-to-hand trading. And then and then there's things like the Kraken Privateer and the Banu Merchantman,
Oh
like
yeah.
moving player shops that I assume they want people to dock to in space, come on board and buy stuff, including NPCs. And that's like a whole other that's
Yeah.
insane. That's crazy. That's like taking a commodity or like a mechanic in game and making it a full game loop. I don't know
Yeah.
how that's gonna work.
It is um their goals for what they have been talking about are so lofty that like to me they don't seem like 1.0 things.
Oh no, definitely not. I don't
Like
think
I
that's
think we
1.0.
maybe get like player shops maybe in some form
Mhm.
by like a 1.0, but some of these things like the Kraken Privateer for example, there's no way.
They're not
Just
working on it.
yeah, I mean, the shit Kraken's getting developed. Sure, it's going to help with the development of the privateer, but the gameplay systems of trading, like I don't think I've seen in a monthly report the economy talk about anything other than what's happening right now. And maybe they're just leaving it out of the monthly report to just because it's early and they just don't want to talk about it, or they're just not working on it right now. And if they're not working on it right now, which is my biggest fear and what I think is probably most true, that has me big concern because I think it's such a pivotal piece of this puzzle, kind of completing the loop of players interacting with each other, and it is just so lofty what they're trying to do. I
Yeah.
I don't know how they're gonna do it.
My worry is that they're not working on it because they do need the scale of the player base to work on it. But that's frustrating because I would prefer if they could simulate it somehow now so that when we're seeing it, it's at least somewhat developed along. I would
Yeah,
hate for us to get to the point where they're like, okay, we've got the systems, we've got the scale, uh, everything's ready to go. We're gonna start including the dynamicism of Star Sim, and then it's like first iteration
yeah.
because in 2028,
Be gone with tier zeros, please.
yeah.
It's interesting how it'll all work because like currently I do a lot of player trading now, so I'm very familiar with the current setup. Um, and to me, um, my favorite system and the system I really think CIG should really lean into, kind of is similar to what you're talking about, a little less face to face though, is I don't know if you've ever seen the Escape from Tarkov's flea market system,
Mhm.
but Tarkov has a phenomenal player trading system in my opinion. Now the big difference there is there's not an open world aspect to it. So you basically go to like your stash or like basically the main menu, and then there's like a flea market button that you click, and then it just opens up a market of every available item that can be sold. And it's all player run. There's no AI aspect to it, but you can literally just go on and click buy, and if someone beats you to that bid, or um, cause it's not really a bid, it's more like first come first serve. So if someone buys it before you, then they get it, and you can list it for whatever price you want. And so you can kind of watch the market as it ebbs and flows, and you see
Mhm.
the minute to minute price changes as some people are trying to like do shady things with the market to make a few extra bucks on a magazine or some bullets or whatever it is they might be selling. And they literally, you can sell basically anything. They've started to do some balance things because some items were getting sold that from a balance perspective shouldn't have been getting sold, but
Mhm.
generally speaking every item can be sold. And I think Star Citizen could really learn from that because it doesn't need to be face to face. Like as someone who really enjoys being face to face with other players, I understand the hardships that come with that. There's huge trust factor problems, especially if you do it outside of Armistice. Inside of Armistice, it's just clunky. Like there's not a great way to handle that transfer. Freight
Mhm.
elevators, we all know how hit or miss those can be, especially right now. And so there's just not a great way to handle that transaction. But if you could just go to like a trade terminal, kind of like you go to clear your crime stat or you're going to access your inventory, and you can basically just log in and boom, there's your trade thing. And we actually see it at the commodity trading post, for example, and you just put another slot in there for the global market, and you could just
Mhm.
start buying and selling. I think that would be a phenomenal way because it could be global. Now, how does the items get transferred? I don't think that matters as much. I know CIG loves their physical elements, so I would not be surprised if they were like buy it and then come pick it up physically. But it's now in your possession, so it's going to be here. So you can just access it in your own inventory, for example. Like
Mhm.
I think that could be a really cool way of setting it up, but um it's hard because there's no right or wrong method. There's not like Eve Online, I think, is probably one of the closest comparisons when you look at a game that's tried to do player trading at scale and how that should work. But Eve is just nowhere close to Star Citizen in terms of the physicality of the world that we're in and the
Right.
transferring of items in that way. So I'm very very curious to see how they handle it because right now there's basically two methods. There's method one, which is by far not even close, the most popular method, which is either UEX, the like r// Star Citizen Discord, or maybe your friends started a Discord, or maybe your org has a small little like trading hub, and you do everything through third party. You organize the meet, then you go meet in game, and typically you're gonna go to the seller's hangar. They lifted up the freight elevator, the buyer looks at it, confirms that everything he wants is there, and then the buyer sends it back down. And that's like probably the most common way to do trading currently. Personally, I really don't like that. I try to avoid doing that as much as possible. It's why I started doing the arms dealing events, was to try to encourage people to stop doing that system and kind of
Why don't you
really,
like it?
to me, it's because I'm a big hater of the arms zone. I think part of what Star Citizen does so well is that sandbox environment. And I understand why we have armistice zones because like the NPC security just isn't there yet, and not at a level that it needs to be to prevent shady things from happening. But what I love about Star Citizen is that in anything but an armistice zone, theoretically anything can happen. And I think there's some really cool gameplay aspects that can come from that, especially from an org. And that's basically what started my org. Is I want to do trading, but I don't want it to be in an armistice zone because I want the org to be involved in the process. I don't want to just be artificially safe because CIG has deemed it so. Um, I want to be safe because I've made myself safe and I've made the operation safe. Um, and so that was kind of the whole foundation of it is like, all right, let's find the coolest locations in the verse and not just meet in a hangar. Let's go meet at Fallow Fields on Pyro 4 in this like gorgeous red and white landscape with these like super large rocks overhead. You got the beautiful sky, the clouds, and maybe the rain, and you're just in this really cool kind of nitty gritty environment like you'd see in the movies and in the back alley type vibe, and
Hmm.
kind of really feel the immersive aspects of it, and there you can conduct your business. And then it's up to you to secure that area in whatever way you deem fit. Do you want to draw a lot of attention to yourself and like make it loud and known that you're there? Or do you want to try to do it under the radar and kind of just slip in, slip out, and kind of keep it low key? And I've had a tremendous amount of fun with that. And for anyone watching, I highly encourage you give it a try because it is an absolute blast. Because from an org standpoint, it's like the perfect content because you have it encourages industrial gameplay because you have the cargo element aspect, um, where like whatever it is you're physically selling has to be moved to that location, and so now the industrial people have to figure out the cargo side of it, and then you have the security if you want security. Maybe you have air patrols, maybe you have physical people there, maybe you've got snipers up in the tower watching the buyers and whatever they might be doing, and then you've got like me and maybe my crew of people as we're physically conducting the deal and talking to them. And VoIP makes this especially more fun. Without VoIP, then you're like talking in Discord DMs, which or global
God.
chat. God forbid global
Ah,
chat. Um, and if VoIP doesn't work, this kind of shatters the experience. It's still really cool, but
yeah.
it shatters the experience quite a bit. And it just it hits so hard because you can have 100 people involved and every single person can have a job that fits their like and their desire in the game, and it works so well. I will
But
always vouch for it.
so, and would you say doing a trade for two questions for you? Who are you trading with? And also, would you say doing a trade is enough content to really entertain everybody involved for that long?
So both are excellent questions. To answer question one, who am I trading with? That's evolved over the years. So before, when I started out, I started really doing this hard, like November of 2024. And then kind of evolved pretty heavily in early 2025. And that's when the kind of Twitter stuff started. And I started pushing the more event side and less the solo side.
Hmm.
Um, and so there, how I found clients changed too. And so it started with global chat. I would just go in global chat and be like, hey, I've got my 890 jump sitting outside of Loreville. Come into my 890 jump. I've got an assortment of items. Come in here, see what you like, tell me what you like. We'll agree to a price. You take the item and you go on your way. And it was as a solo player that was really fun. It felt like a cool use of an 890. Would always like meet them in the actual meeting rooms and we'd sit down, we'd talk and VoIP for a bit, figure out a price, and we'd be good to go. But then as I evolved, it started moving into um, like org contracts. Org contracts are something that we do right now, and there's one group in particular. We don't know why. We don't ask. It happens. They pretty consistently, probably once a month, consistently place an order for 20 Atlas Ictigias.
Hmm.
It's almost uh, as consistent as the sun rising is, like once a month. And they just come
That's
in.
actually really cool, dude. I actually really like that.
It is, and it's really fun because when we see that order come in, we're like, all right, guys, let's spin it up. Everyone's go get those Ictigios. We'll load them onto an Asgard, or nowadays we use an Idris, but load them up onto our ship, and then we'll meet these guys in dead space. Typically, it changes sometimes depending on the
Hmm.
setup, and then we go through a transfer process. We give them all the icties. They go and test them, make sure they all work, because sometimes the game bugs out and they just stop working for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And we'll complete that transfer. And nowadays, I mean, they're kind of scamming us because of how bad the market is. But before the market got scuffed, like middle of last year, we were making like 20, 30 million per deal. And it was like a pretty good source of revenue because then we would split out the cost. Because for us, our cost was zero because all we had to do was spawn 30 of them and then load them in. And then we would
Well,
just spread the wealth.
I mean, I'm guessing you guys, as an org, had like a bunch of events where you went and got them, or is it just kind of you collected them from your members as you guys procured?
Um, for me, I got mine for free. I just a patch happened one day, and I logged in and I just had one. That was cool for me.
That's
Some of
convenient.
my other guys though, they did grind for them, but they did that on their own time. We didn't do any like org. Let's go get this
I
for
see.
the org. It just kind of
Okay.
happened. I'm sure you could do that though. And so org contracts is a big part of that. And we've done a couple there. That ICTY client is our most consistent. We've done some other ones where they'll hit us up like 2 or 3 times and then we stop hearing from them. But um, and then the other method is people now kind of know that if they come to our Discord, we do that stuff, and
Hmm.
so they'll come in and specifically request stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but it's always
And a little market.
yeah, and I have some buddies um, who also run a Discord specifically for this purpose. So sometimes I'll check in there, and if there's something I want to bid on to win, I will intentionally come in really low. I'll be like, "Hey, I'll sell it to you for 20% lower than this guy, with the understanding that you have to do the trade on my terms, meaning you have to be willing to come out of Armistice." And that has worked a good bit. People are sometimes willing to take that pay cut to experience the gameplay, and sometimes they're not. It's hit or miss. Um,
It helps to build a name. Like over time, you're building a name so people will trust it more.
yeah, and I've kind of staked myself a little bit on that. Like, there's been a couple trades where they're like, "Well, I don't know you at all," and it's like, totally get that, totally fair. Feel free to look me up on social media. Feel free to look at my Twitter. I talk about this all the time. I have proof of dozens of trades on social media and Discord and whatnot. And I I can give proof and evidence that we're not going to scam you. And if I do, I want you to post about it on social media because I want my reputation to kind of be staked on doing these trades well. Now, the other side of why this works really well for us is because we like PvP. And if you don't like PvP, this might not be the thing for you because if the chance of pirates, authentic pirates coming in and stealing your stuff, if that is too scary for you, and I'm maybe not talking you specifically, but just people in general, if the thought of your stuff getting stolen by a real player is too much for you, don't do this. It's not
Yeah.
worth it because it happens a lot more than you might think. Especially since we started to kind of develop a name, it's like almost every other time. 50% of the time, we're going to get hit by 30, 40, 50, 60 guys who are coming in.
Jesus.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot
What?
too. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
it
god.
creates these huge organic PvP battles, and we've had more than I can count. And it started out, I started doing this where I actually I don't want to say scripted. I planned it out to be that way. So as like an actual event, I wouldn't tell any of my members, and I would invite an org to come in and try to pirate us. And
Yeah.
that like encouraged it to a degree, and I really wanted to see how that played out. And the members all really enjoyed it, and they're like, "Oh my god, that felt so immersive and so real and so just not anything you get playing Star Citizen normally." And now I don't invite any orgs, and now it just happens. there's
That's
just
cool, man.
there's nothing we can do about it. Um, but it is really fun because it just gives an experience that you just don't get in the game because you know that you can get hit at any point. Like literally the last event we did, a group did a perfectly executed heist. I mean, it was like movie worthy heist. They
Wow.
like weeks in advance they found out we were doing this, and they had someone reach out to me on Discord posing as a fake buyer, and I didn't know this. This was all news to me, and it unfolded for me in real time. And I'm like, yep, we'll set up a deal. I'd planned an event where we lined up multiple deals in a row, so we would just kind of shuffle through them. And unfortunately for me, this guy was the front of the list, and so we run him through, and I think this happened like a month and a half ago, so it's pretty recent. And he comes in and he was like, I want to bring my own security, which we always say is totally fine. If you want to feel safe, have your own muscle, that's totally fine. We know we're going to outnumber your security 6-1, so we don't care. um, and but we do have like a stopgap system where if you want to get to our buy location, you meet us at a location that we'll tell you, and then there we're going to have a security team with a shuttle, and you have to join that shuttle's party. So the shuttle team will be in their own party, and you have to join their party, and then the pilot of the shuttle will be in our party, so he can see where we still are, and then he'll go to us, and it creates a nice little like vacuum system where we can kind of
Yeah,
check to see
it's
people
an
are who
airlock.
they are. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
airlock, and it works. It works generally really well. The major flaw to that system, and it's what they expose really really well, is if someone in that group leaves the party at any time and joins another party, they
And
immediately become a quantum marker. And so
yeah.
that's what they did. And so I told my guys, if someone leaves the party, you instantly execute them and throw their body off the ship, and we are out of there. And we missed it one time, and sure enough, in seconds, it's all it took. A massive fleet of like 6 orgs and like I think it was 45 guys show up.
Oh
And
my god.
yeah, and they came in and it was perfectly executed. Like massive props. If you guys are watching this, massive props. I loved
So
it. I was in heaven.
they stole the stuff, yeah?
Not only did they steal the stuff, they went into our Idris, purged everybody, and just
Oof.
wiped us all out. And then they just took the Idris, and all the stuff was on the Idris, which actually made it more fun because then we could track the Idris because the owner could see the marker for it. So then
Mhm.
we ended up chasing them from Nyx into Stanton into Pyro, and we like kept chasing them and having like little skirmishes, and then they'd get away. It lasted for like 3 hours, and then finally we recovered the Idris because
Oh,
we
nice.
caught them at a point where they stopped and they moved the cargo from the Idris to a Polaris, and we missed the Polaris. So all the cargo got away, but we got the Idris back, and
Damn.
it was
Dude,
just
people are really strategizing around this stuff already, huh?
yeah, and that's what's been so fun about it. And I think like we've never had a negative review. It's something I absolutely pride myself on. Is like we have never had someone come through and say that was a boring experience. They've always
That's
said like this has opened my eyes to what's possible from a player generating content standpoint, and because there's just so much potential when you let the game be the game and you don't kind of artificially limit yourself by being in an armistice zone, for example. Like if that was in an armistice zone, that just doesn't happen. Um, None of that could have happened.
now,
Um, and so it's interesting, and it's not going to be for everyone. But I do encourage
yeah.
everyone to at least try it. Try it once or twice. Just experience that because it is unlike an experience I think you can get in Star Citizen anytime in the past, and also anytime coming up in the future. For at least what we know based on kind of current systems. And I hope it
Yeah.
moves into more of that, but I don't think it will. I do think it's going to kind of go into what you were talking about with like more like Moby Glass based systems or physical like screens that pop up UIs elements that kind of transact stuff that way. I do think from an overall game health standpoint, that's the way to do this. But I don't think I'll ever
Yeah.
stop just physically dropping an item and letting you take it and doing a transaction that way because it is really fun.
Yeah, there's space for that, and I hope they can create space for that that's not just role playing, because that is a cool experience. But I think the one thing that always comes up when it comes to things like this, and it's a big part of why people want PvP to be so separated, is like a lot of people. I hate to say it's an ego thing, but it's kind of an ego thing. A lot of people
It
don't
is.
want to lose to other people. You don't want
Yeah.
to know that somebody else is benefiting off of your ruin. It it can bring upon bad feelings, right?
Yeah.
Even if, like you said, you guys had this whole thing with the other group, and like everything went, they did it perfectly, but there might be some people in your group who are like, I mean, this is great, but I feel bad. Like it might have been fun for them, but they still might feel bad from it.
Yeah.
Um,
I know
how
something
do
we
you?
do to mitigate that is everything is mine. So everything we do at an event is always my materials. Um, and I'll share the profits still. So even like I usually take a loss on every event we do. I end up
Mhm.
usually losing millions and millions, whether it gets stolen or even selling stuff. I take a loss because I still pay the crew.
Yeah,
Oftentimes nowadays we don't pay as much because there's an excitement level to come that is like if we, and now the scale is so large, like we'll have an event of 100 people and it's like I can't pay 100 of you. I will literally
yeah,
be broke. um, but we have done that. And so when everything is mine, it's a lot harder for them to be like, that sucked. I just lost all this stuff. It's like, not
mhm.
really. You lost my stuff. And if I'm not mad,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be mad.
But it's like the humiliation aspect for a lot of people.
Yes,
Like a lot of
very much
folks
so.
can't stop until they go back and like attack again, or they get a
Yes.
chance to blow something up, right? How do you mitigate that with people?
Um, I think it's setting expectations. Um, we always do a briefing beforehand, kind of get everyone on the same page, talk about what the goal is. And something I like to always impress on people is we're doing this to have fun and enjoy the experience in the moment.
Hmm.
And if the moment lasts a couple hours because we managed to track them down and we managed to maybe recover some of it, great. And if the moment ends in 2 minutes because they came in, dropped a bunch of bombs on us, tractor beamed some of our stuff into their ship, and then left, like that's still a moment that you don't typically get in the game. And it might not be as fun, might not be as crazy, and if that's what happened, we'll quickly recover, we'll get the operation back and going, and we'll keep having fun for the next couple of hours.
Hmm.
But you've got to set that expectation because if you don't, um, like you said, some people really struggle with that, and they don't. Like generally speaking, we are a losing org because we intentionally put ourselves at disadvantages for the purpose of fun.
Yeah.
Now it makes the wins crazy because when you come back from something like that and you have that big win, or maybe you repel a big threat. We've had a couple where massive orgs came in, and it turned into these massive fleet battles, and we won that engagement and managed to keep all our stuff, and even in fact like continued doing transactions in the middle of a war around us. Um, it makes those wins really high, but it does make the lows low. And that is absolutely an element that is there. And so I would say setting expectations and also just finding the right people. Like, I think the best kinds of people for this are your survival shooter or survival, like extraction shooter kinds of people who are used to risk and understand the value of risk in a video game. I think if
Yeah.
you're used to playing games that don't have a ton of risk, something like this would be really hard for you because like you said the humiliation aspect, especially when some of these orgs like will make a YouTube video after the fact and they're like, we just went in and stole 100 million of galley stuff, and you see your name like in that video, like that can be hard. And even for me sometimes, like I'm not invincible to this stuff. I generally am pretty good. um but
It's
yeah.
never fun to be a target.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And
especially when you can't really respond.
yes, yeah, exactly. Well, we've been going for an hour now, and I don't want to hold you up for much longer. Do you have time for another question?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, wanted to see. So, 2026 shaping up to be a pretty awesome year for Star Citizen, I would say. And crafting and base building in particular, well, not base building, well, more crafting. Crafting and social tools are kind of the two big things I would say for me at least. Others might have other uh, favorites on the list, but I think those are some of my favorites. As we're looking into 2026, based on what we currently know, based on like the letter from the chairman, kind of monthly report hints and whatnot, what are you personally? We'll move away from org stuff. What are you personally most excited for And w- why are you excited for it? Is it for org reasons, for personal reasons, for content reasons? Just kind of touch on that for a little bit.
You asking specifically when it comes to crafting and base building?
Just 2026. Like those are my
Okay.
favorites: crafting and base, or I'm sorry, not base building, crafting and social tools,
Yeah.
and eventually base building. But um, as we're kind of looking towards the future, what are some of your favorite things coming up, and why, basically?
Uh, crafting is a really big one because for me, the gameplay that I'm excited for in a game like this is honestly, it's very similar to sort of what you're doing. I want to be a data broker. I want to make trades, less so on in terms of cargo and items, and more so in terms of, um, well, information, locations, things that are
Yeah,
derived from exploration. And crafting is really starting to push that, it seems.
yeah,
Obviously, you have to find the best quality resources. You have to figure out how to get them out of a place, how to protect that operation, all that stuff. I enjoy that aspect of it. In terms of me specifically, what I'm doing, I want to be on the ship who's going out and finding little things that might be valuable and bringing them back and finding the right seller for them. So I'm also extremely excited for crafting. Um, Even more excited for the non-committal and not mentioned possible update to the star map that could mean we can actually save markers so we can
yeah,
tell people where to go. Uh, that I think if they said that that was a real thing this year, that would might be the single most exciting thing for me is just the ability to save markers and direct people places. But I also am really really big into the social tools because as a player who prefers solo gameplay but also is super excited to jump into group stuff with an org, I find that I am both of my experiences are hampered by the current like state of talking to people,
yeah.
and I think that would go so far in making this game feel better.
Yeah, it I agree with you on both points. I It's one of actually some of my favorite content that you do is was when you start to talk about some of the data running stuff like that, because it's not an area I'm super familiar with in the game. So when you're doing your kind of deep dive videos or stuff like that, I like watching those because I think it's something I will probably get into as well. I think it's something I can kind of pretty easily incorporate into some of my gameplay already.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think it's much of a stretch to go from selling a physical item to selling a digital uh, piece of information. So
Yeah.
I think there are some cool parallels there, and I'm curious how they do it as well. Like I was honestly, I was a little worried. I don't. It was either CitizenCon 2024 or 2023 where they showed that demo of the guy like walking up and downloading the data off of a terminal,
Hmm.
and it got me a little worried because I was like, I hope it's not all like that. Like, I hope there is some element of trading that information with a real player.
Hmm.
Because like, if he finds a cave, like which we've just started seeing, like caves pop up on HUD markers, for example. If if you find a cave and there's whatever resource you might be looking for at the time in there, and then you can sell that, like that's a really cool thing. I think that should be something to be really excited about.
Yeah.
And I would be, oh, there we go. That would be a really fun addition to the game. Um, and
For
yeah, go ahead.
for me, I think I'm very hopeful that they go with an underlying system of all maps have age.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that would make for a that could completely flip how exploration works because if every map has age, then every map now has a value, and that
Yeah,
value is always decreasing. And these places, like what you saw with the downloading of the map, if they have resources respawning, if they have NPCs respawning, if they have random NPC organized bases popping up randomly, then that means that over time those maps will be outdated. And if not all official locations are on a map, and the game itself, the space station can say, "Hey, Aberdeen hasn't been scanned in however long. Here's a mission that a player can take if they want, and that mission's payment's always going up because that map is always going down in
yeah,
value." I think that could be a valid way to try and do. light exploration, and I do hope that that's how they handle the data stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a really neat idea because I think it allows you to sell data points that are easy to disappear, like salvage wrecks, for example, like a player ship that's down, like take a downed Idris, for example. Like
Hmm.
that would be a really cool piece of information to sell, but like the game cleans that up after a while, and so it's like if that map is more, I don't know what the time is, but say it's 3 hours old is when the cleanup happens. If that map is more than 3 hours old, well, then
Yeah,
it's not applicable
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
And
It
I
also,
really hope reputation ties into that.
yeah, so do I. That idea would also allow exploration to kind of be a competitive thing. If you're out
Yeah,
exploring the let's say the Castra system and you're doing a whole bunch of scans for 3 hours, you always have in the back of your head, you're like, maybe there are other people out here scanning. Like maybe I should go turn in what
yeah,
I have right now, versus you could hold on to that stuff for days and turn it all in at once, but then it's a little bit less value because it's taken a while.
yeah. And especially when you think about things like transient jump points. Is that what they're called? I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah,
Like when those things, if they can get those into the game and they're like popping in and out, and it's like, oh, well, I just found one. Do I go try to find another one, or do I just take the one I found and go try to sell it and cash in right now before someone
yeah,
else gets to it? I agree.
exactly.
That could be really really cool.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. Fingers crossed. Hopefully this year is big. It's looking pretty big, and I'm pretty excited for it. But we'll see if they can pull it together. I'm hopeful that the bi-monthly patch cycle, other than this patch, because I would argue this patch didn't really have a ton going for it. I'm hopeful that the remaining 5 patches of the year are all pretty big in terms of like
I
give us
think
some major headline.
Yeah, I think they will be at least up until Squadron supposedly releases. I have a video I'm working on about this actually because while it's not 4.6 isn't like a big patch, it might not feel like 4.6
Yeah,
for a January update, it's big.
yeah.
And I think if you forget the number and just look at what they're doing in January, it it gives some good signs as to how much momentum they have going into the rest of the year.
Yeah, true, because they don't really do a whole lot in January. It's usually
No.
a
We don't
post
even
here
get a
or there, and
roadmap
that's
roundup yet.
it.
Yeah. It's usually another month before the roadmap roundup comes out.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I've heard people say that, and so it reminds me in the moment, but long term, I do keep forgetting that January is generally a very slow month, so
Yeah. Yeah.
makes me really excited for March. March, I'm curious what that ramp up looks like, and I think the monthly report that we'll probably get next week, maybe with
Maybe.
January's monthly report, we'll see.
Yeah.
I think that one will be really telling on the momentum going into the year and what that'll look like. So it'll be really exciting. But all right, we will. If you don't have any other thoughts, we'll kind of begin the wrap up here, and don't want to take any more of your time. Any final thoughts on any topics we've shared? Anything maybe you thought about after the fact, wanted to touch on, or any kind of final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, I think I did a lot of yapping to be honest, but I definitely got my thoughts out if anybody's watching this. And I a lot of people think I don't have criticisms for the game, so I always am curious when like a new audience might see me go on a podcast. It's generally when I get to talk about the game more with people, I get to talk more about my problems with it. Um, the problems that I have, I understand why they exist. Like the social apps, for instance, were built for like when we had 25 people in a server. It's understandable that they don't work in the current environment. Um, but now that server meshing is in the game, we are at a stage where they need to start getting more and more important features in. And like people are still calling for them to stop adding features so that we can have playability and stability. And the point gets missed. I think that we need updated features to get
Yeah,
stability because we are using features that were built 7 years ago for a different game that are actively holding the engine back.
add
So
transit refactor,
yeah,
please.
I will always push for that. I believe in making sure the game is playable because they push it as a live service. Maybe they shouldn't have been, but they do.
Yeah,
And so they need to make sure it stays accessible to people. But at the same time, they cannot stop building this game anymore. Last year was great for money. It was great for the chance to enjoy some content, but this year's got to be like a hybrid. They got to do content, but they got to get the features in. So I will always be raging about the social apps. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for bringing me on to talk about that kind of stuff today. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a blast. This is our first for the viewers. This is kind of our first formal time getting to talk to each other too. So it was
Yeah.
great getting to do this, and appreciate you coming on. If you guys are watching this, make sure Space Tomato also has a phenomenal podcast. It's I watch it religiously. Um, it is my commute to work and commute back home from work show. Listen to it all the time. Uh, Definitely go give that a listen. And for the viewers as well. In the description, I'm gonna have all of his stuff. Podcast, his Space Tomato channel, Space Tomato 2, Twitch, all that kind of stuff. If you're not watching Space Tomato, you're doing it wrong. Go give him some love, and we will catch you guys for episode 2, where we will have Citizen Skylark and maybe one or two other people, and then episode 3 we have potentially Citizen Spooner. So I will catch you guys all then. Thank you guys all very much, and this is the Citizens Voice podcast.